Hi everyone in Cloud Computing and welcome to episode 13 of the Cloud Computing Australia show with Brad Nelson and the world's #1 cloud industry expert and thought leader, David Linthicum. This show is sponsored by Nelson Hilliard, cloud computing recruitment specialist, placing great people in cloud, IoT, fintech and AI. In this week's show, David and I will be talking about blockchain and the PricewaterhouseCoopers report that says well over $1.4 billion has been invested into the blockchain technology globally. Hi Dave, it's great to see you. How are you going this week?
It's great to be back, man. I was looking forward to this, talking about this blockchain stuff, because you just don't hear about this stuff anymore.
Yeah, I know it's been a while since blockchain's come up in the news, hasn't it? I think it's one of those things. The bandwagon's been and gone. You know, people are forgetting about blockchain now. It's not very interesting anymore.
I get 5 calls a week from the press on blockchain, and I become kind of de facto expert in blockchain. And it's something that it's very valuable. We're going to talk about the value of blockchain, how it's kind of working within the industry, but it's also something that's probably has a tendency to be overheated, overhyped, and it's a bit concerning that we're looking at this as kind of the savior of the world when in actuality it's just a technology standard.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, you could actually turn around and say, people, I'm a bit blockchained out, to be honest with you, at the moment. So if you wouldn't mind saving that for another week. So let's get on with the show then, shall we, Dave? Everyone's jumping on the blockchain bandwagon as we make sort of light-hearted jest of all of that. I mean, what do you see that sets Australia apart with the innovation of this technology? Because it really has embraced it in so many ways, as we've discussed in previous shows about Australia and our training, etc. So where do you see it's being set apart within Australia with the innovation?
Well, Australia is a banking center. It's been like that for a long time. And so if you look at the Asia Pacific region and the Asia Pac and all the things that are down there that are really getting into the essence of what blockchain can be applied to, then suddenly you have a market that's kind of untapped in terms of their ability to kind of leverage this technology in a very productive way. And so what blockchain is at its essence is the ability to do things efficiently, which we've been doing inefficiently, for some time, the ability to kind of clear transactions, doing it in a secure way. It's virtually unhackable. You can hack it, but it's has basically safeguards involved. Everybody has to agree upon the transaction. It's very secure. And the reality is that if you look at Hong Kong and Singapore and Australia, those are kind of the big, financial centers of the world. And I think going forward, that's really kind of where the innovation of blockchain is going to be coming from. So if you look at the technology brain power that exists down in that area, really kind of Australia holds 80% of it. So, going forward, the ability to kind of build companies and innovative startups, ability to build banks that are blockchain aware, the ability to build technology that's blockchain enabled, all these sorts of things have the potential to come out of Australia. So Australia can kind of make a little micro economy, based on blockchain. My concern, however, would be that, it's a bit overhyped in what it's capable of doing, and ultimately when people kind of realize what the capabilities are, it's very innovative and it's very functional, but it's not necessarily something that's going to save the world. It's a way to clear financial transactions at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it has been. I read an article. I think it's going to save the world from poverty and world hunger and everything like that. And I mean, it's. I think they're headlines and they're sort of one of those clickbait stories, aren't they? Really, it's the adoption of any technologies can be applied to most things to try and benefit them or streamline them. It's what's been quite promising with Australia, though, I must say, is that the ASX is now moving away from its chess format, I believe, at some point this year, and it's going all blockchain basically for clearance of transactions, which is going to be fantastic, and I think that's almost a world first for the stock exchange in Australia to do that. Well, certainly it's a world first for Australia because it's the Australian Stock Exchange, but I don't know about any of the other stock exchanges transferring over to blockchain, but that's a big deal, isn't it?
It's a huge deal. I mean, we wouldn't try that in the States on a bet. So, the reality is that, Australians have the capability to kind of embrace the value of risk. And that's something that we don't see here in the United States and the banking systems here, and even probably in the European region as well. So that's really kind of a strength of what Australia is about. And at the end of the day, the cool thing about blockchain is it's going to save you a ton of money in basically clearing these transactions, and things can happen in a matter of minutes versus a matter of days, which is kind of what we're dealing with right now. So we're getting to kind of a path where we're looking at the enablers, the block. I use the word block and blockchain, but blockings, the blocks that really kind of sit between, or the obstacles that sit between you and being kind of an innovative business and moving at the speed of need, and how you basically clear these transactions. The reality is banks have put too much time and effort into building systems, SWIFT and, all the other straight through transaction processing systems been around for years and decades to make these things happen. I've been in the middle of that, and that's really kind of a tough thing to watch. And so here we have kind of a practical enabling technology. It's basically from the wisdom of the crowds. In other words, people have really kind of crowdsourced this whole thing. We're able to kind of get around the limitations of the existing ways in which we clear transactions. And by the way, we're able to do it in a much more secure way, and we're able to do it for a fraction of the cost of what it cost in the past. And basically paying these big fees to these banks and these standards organizations, these banking consortiums, is something that really kind of needs to fall by the wayside. The reality is people need to understand that if you're going to move $1 million, I understand that, there's a value in making that happen, but the capabilities within blockchain allows you to do it in a few seconds. And by the way, you're going to be assured that it's going to occur because everybody's going to basically provide input into that transaction that's going to be secured into itself. And so that's the value of the technology. Now, having said that, I don't want to get into the fact that blockchain is really very simple. When you get to the essence of what it's able to do, it's really a standard. And the fact of the matter is we can, get around this consortium of standards. That's the value of it.
Yeah, it's got a huge value in that respect, isn't it? For sums of money and just the volume of transactions that can happen at that, and coping it with that at that speed as well. And obviously, it's been heavily sort of paired up with cryptocurrency as well. Obviously, it's not just all about cryptocurrency, as we know. KPMG did an interesting report actually about Australia and the fintech market, and there's there's probably over 579 fintech companies alone in Australia, with a $675 million investment into that sector. And that has obviously been coming into the wealth tech and obviously personal finance market all around blockchain. So, when just going back to what you said about Australia forward thinking and really embracing and building on that technology with innovation, that really is quite something, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think that really kind of goes to what we talked about this many times before. The Australian tech market can be more innovative and more creative than some of the other industries because there's very little limitations on what they're able to do. And so they're not a large, really are basically getting into a large investment market. They're getting into a small, innovative niche of things that are going to grow into larger issues that deal with in the world. So the blockchain, technology is an instance of that. So the use case here is going to be the ability for the Australian companies to kind of embrace the technology, build innovation around the technology, because there's lots of things you can do. The ability to do integration of existing systems, integration within cloud, integration within cloud-based systems, transaction monitoring, all these sorts of technologies really don't exist yet, and they're needed. Build those things in the space and basically add upon the existing, value what blockchain is, roll it out to the rest of the world, and then suddenly you have some, very innovative technology, which comes back into Australia as kind of an innovative center of this particular issue. Now, I don't think that we're underselling Australia to say that, the only thing they have to offer is basically innovations around blockchain. That's not going to be the case. But the fact of the matter is that they're jumping so quickly into the game, and they're good at it at this point, from what I've seen, that they're able to capture a large section of the market, which is emerging because the market's there. And so the path to success is really, really kind of a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's even the government, Australian government, has come on board as well. I mean, I know we've spoken about the moving for ASX from chess into blockchain, but the Treasurer Scott Morrison of the current government, he's a big fan of blockchain, He's already pointed out that he want that the government want to embrace blockchain, and that he can see it's going to significantly improve productivity, security, with efficiency gains as well for the Australian economy. So from a government point of view, it looks very promising.
Yeah, I wonder if those guys actually know what blockchain is and does. It'd be interesting to kind of quiz them on it. I suspect that they like the buzzword, but don't necessarily understand what it is. But putting that aside, the ability for the government to get behind it is a huge issue, because the reality is the government in the United States and the governments in the European unions really don't know what to do with blockchain. They understand that the banks are going to embrace it, and the banks are doing prototypes right now. But how do they control and regulate, the transactions that are occurring with this technology? Because there's lots of room for abuse. The ability to kind of, get the, drug cartels into blockchain, and basically huge transactions that are occurring behind the scenes that are kept away from the government supervision. The ability to, get into these, new crypto economies which are starting to emerge. If you look at Silk Road, which was kind of the part of the dark web, kind of things that are going on, that thing really kind of ran on Bitcoin as a way to kind of pay for the products. And I'm not going to mention what the products are, but they weren't, products you would sell at the corner store. And all those sorts of things are kind of ripe for abuse. And so as we kind of move into this direction, one of the things we need to ask ourselves is really, what are the bad guys going to do with this technology, and what can we do to prevent the bad guys from leveraging this technology in kind of a way that we don't want to leverage them? We don't want the technology to be leveraged. And so I think going forward, this is going to be a challenge for the governments to basically create monitoring and management of technology. The problem with the government, certainly here in the States, and probably Australia as well, is that they have a tendency to be about 3 years behind the existing technology. And so they really kind of have to look ahead as to what proactively they need to do to provide the regulations to make this thing a success. And by the way, be cautious about how the technology is leveraged, but also get out of the way of the existing innovative path to making blockchain a reality. So we have that kind of trade-off going on right now, and it will be interesting to see the way the governments react in the United States, Australia, European Union, Asia Pac.
Yeah, it's true. They really do have to stand out of the way of innovation, but equally keep up with that innovation as well. I know there is a Friends of Blockchain parliamentary group that's been set up by an ex-Labour MP, Sam Dastyari, and Jane Hume, I think her name is. I can't remember. Sorry, Jane, if you're watching. I can't remember your full name. But I mean, I think that's an advisory board that is, mitigating information for, or passing that information into government in some way or another. So we'd like to hope that, if Australia are going to talk about blockchain, they're going to know what the hell they're talking about, from a government point of view at least. And like you say, stand out the way of innovation and let innovation happen, and keep up as best you can with all that taxpayers' money.
Yeah, absolutely. I give the same advice to the government agencies I talk to right now, and the regulatory, state, local, and also federal. I say it's okay to figure out how you need to regulate this market as it starts to emerge. But you really need to kind of get out of the way of the innovation part. So and that's kind of something that's very difficult for them to do. So we'll see the way they behave.
We certainly will. Dave, thanks again for a great show. It's been an absolute pleasure this week. We always thoroughly enjoy talking about blockchain, don't we?
Absolutely, and I'm going to buy a lot of stock in blockchain companies. I'm going to make a lot of money. Hopefully you will too.
Yeah, exactly right. Thanks again, Dave, for joining us this week. It's been awesome. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and we hope you enjoyed this week's Cloud Computing Australia show. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for our weekly shows. You can get David on Twitter, which is @DavidLinthicum, and I'm on Twitter as well, @Nelson_Hilliard. So look forward to next week, and thanks for watching.